Welcome back to the Real Friends podcast. We have, as we typically do, a brand new face on the pod. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, pal? Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so my name is Kyle Huerta, and I do a podcast called Beyond the Logline podcast on Spotify and anywhere you can stream it.
Awesome. Yeah, and he's definitely a TikTok follow, so make sure you go follow him
Yes.
there. But we both went to see a movie this weekend that I would say was pretty anticipated, right? It's pretty well-known IP. We're talking The Bride from Maggie Gyllenhaal. This is her second film she's directed. So she directed a movie a couple years ago called The Lost Daughter that also starred Jessie Buckley, and Peter Skarsgård. So they're both in this as well. Um, Let's just get right into it, man. What did you think of The Bride?
I feel like we just had a Frankenstein movie with Guillermo del Toro, so I wasn't sure. Like, this IP's been done, like you said, so many times. But I really think that this take on Frankenstein on The Bride was actually really unique and
Sure.
interesting in its way. Um, and really, really just weird. I feel like there isn't really linear storytelling going on. It's just a lot of kind of insanity, but that's kind of the point of it, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. It's like it's almost as if Maggie Gyllenhaal had a story she wanted to tell, and because it's so hard to get movies made, she had to strap it onto the Frankenstein IP.
Yeah.
Because, she wanted a budget. I mean, the budget of this movie is almost $100 million. And you're not going to get a budget of $100 million anymore unless you're a really well-known filmmaker that's making something, unique, right? And this, I mean, this is unique. I wouldn't in any way say that means it's good. That means it's good.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a very different take. It's obviously based on the Mary Shelley novel Frankenstein. It's loosely based on the film from the 1930s, The Bride of Frankenstein. Um, it's interesting that this movie came out the very last day that you could vote on the Oscars. Because I don't know if it would have pulled a Norbit where it killed, like when that killed Eddie Murphy's Oscar chances that
Mm.
year. But I feel like this might have hurt Jessie Buckley, and it's not her fault. I thought Jessie Buckley did really well with what she was given.
Yeah. Man, Jessie Buckley's like seeing Hamnet this year and seeing the kind of performance she brings is like just insanity to me. But like you said, with what she had, I think that she did do this role really well.
Sure.
I just think it was like so it was just so strange. Like this whole beginning part with Mary Shelley being like a character that starts off in like inside her head. And it's like this battle of like this Jekyll and Hyde thing they keep doing back and forth. It's just like a really strange start to the movie. And I think like throughout the movie too, I was kind of digging in there, being like, okay, who is, this Mary Shelley character and who's supposed to be like this bride, or maybe the bride is both of them. But yeah, it definitely in comparison to like a movie like Hamnet, it definitely I guess you could say kind of took away from her rather than
Sure.
added.
Yeah. Well, and it was very confusing and she tried her best, but like I think that one of the parts of this movie that hurt it was the possession, right? Because Mary Shelley is possessing this character
Hmm.
Ida, and Jessie Buckley's playing both of them. She'll snap into the Chicago accent when she's being Ida. She snaps into the British accent, when she's Mary Shelley. Um, and it was very interesting, but it made it almost incoherent. Like seeing this without subtitles made it very hard to figure out what they're saying.
Yes, exactly. And that's when it started feeling just like a mess, like just kind of a hot mess. Like I knew what they were trying to do, and I think that they were are trying to make some kind of social commentary, right, on um women specifically in that time and like how a woman that would act the way she does is like monstrous, right? It's seen
Hmm.
as not a standard appropriate way for a woman to act. And then they kind of also like interweaved this subplot with the whole mob boss and everything too, where she's like disrespecting him, and that kind of has a strange payoff at the end. But it almost to me kind of felt unnecessary.
Sure.
I wasn't really sure what the point of that was.
It felt tacked on, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like that and the detectives, honestly, like to me it feels like a waste of Peter Skarsgård. Like Peter Skarsgård
Oh.
is an incredible actor and Penelope Cruz is good too, and they just
Hmm.
felt tacked on and unnecessary. I mean, my favorite parts of the movie are because I thought Christian Bale did really well too.
Hmm.
Um, I think that when those two are doing their Bonnie and Clyde stuff was the coolest part of this movie. I think my absolute favorite scene is when Frankenstein and the bride are together. They go to that club and there's the odd dance scene, but right after the dance scene, there's those guys that try to assault the bride.
Hmm.
And Frankenstein is like, okay, I guess I got it. And he curb stomps that guy, like he kills them both. Like that was captivating. And I was like, okay, if this is the rest of the movie, I'm here for it. But she wanted to, and being a dude, I can't really talk on this much, but she was doing like a feminist perspective of the bride. And it felt very like, I don't know if you've seen Joaquin Phoenix's The Joker, but it kind of felt
Yes.
like that when, the women start doing the brain, what is it, brain worm or something, like they're doing all the protesting. And so I was like, man, this feels a lot like The Joker. And then I found out that the same person that shot both Joker movies also shot this movie. So it makes a lot of
Oh,
sense that they felt so similar in that regard.
that makes complete sense, actually. I saw a Letterboxd review that sums up kind of what you're saying. It's like this movie is fully Ado meets Bonnie and Clyde,
Sure.
which it kind of feels like it's that vibe. But I agree with you too, where I feel like, when you think about what you want, like more of a movie, is I was excited that we didn't deal like with the whole time of like, how did the science behind making the bride happen? It was just easy and quick. So we're kind of getting to the
Quick.
point,
Yep.
which I liked. But I wanted more of, like you said, after the curb stomp, like I wanted more Bonnie and Clyde and less of whatever else was kind of happening underneath it. We had like the pool scene where she like, goes down on him and these like really random scenes that maybe were building up to something, but feel like it wasn't really payoffs. It just felt like they kind of just started throwing things and hoping they would stick at that point.
Hmm.
Whereas I almost thought the movie was going to end actually in the first time the cops catch them in the fancy party like ballroom scene kind of thing.
Sure.
I thought the movie was about to end and it was a full out shootout or whatever. It didn't, obviously, but I was curious like from there it could have just been flat out more and more of them kind of Bonnie and Clyde shootouts. I think that would have been more interesting maybe.
Yeah, I feel like this movie had the opportunity to end a couple times and it would have been better. I think right there would have been a great time for it to end. I talk about this on other podcasts. Like when I'm in a movie that's pretty long, I'm anticipating like, okay, it should end right here, right?
Hmm.
So there was that moment. And then when it didn't, and then they went to the drive-in, I was like, okay, this is a perfect spot for this to end. Like, we're spoiling the movie, obviously. Like, so Frankenstein gets shot, right, in the head. And the story of Bonnie and Clyde is they're both killed together. So I was like,
Hmm.
oh man, if she gets killed right now too, that's a pretty good ending. Like, I would have enjoyed that. The ballroom scene was cool, but it was also pretty incoherent. Like, there's this thing where she's possessed by Mary Shelley, but she also becomes possessed by every woman that's been like attacked by the mob, and she's just rattling off all these things that have been done to them.
Hmm.
um, I feel like Maggie Gyllenhaal had something she wanted to say but didn't know how to say it, I guess.
Yes, exactly that. And I did see she was on an interview recently. I can't remember who, it was one of the talk show hosts, but her brother came on and said, "Oh, she forgot to say that a big part of this movie was like about community and getting people all in the theater and having like a communal experience." And she said that, and I was kind of like, I don't really think that came through for me,
Not
honestly.
at
And that might be
all.
one of those things where just sending Frankenstein to the movies over and over and over isn't enough to like make that point, I guess. But also
Sure.
what you said about the detectives too, right? I think that they were definitely underutilized, and it feels very random too, right? I feel
Hmm.
the female detective, what's her role? Obviously, a woman in that time is the point, right? She's walks into every room, no one takes her seriously. Even in the end, when she's detective in that final scene, like they still don't respect her, but I really was having a hard time trying to find the reason that she was in the movie. Like, what was her actual goal? It felt like she didn't have her own goals or desires, or you know what I mean? It just felt very random.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is reading into it too much, right? But then, so the actual ending of the movie, where the bride takes Frankenstein back to the doctor to like try and see if she can save him, she's screaming "Me too" over and over and over again, and it's like that was to me that felt like it was the point that this was a Me Too movie that happened to
Mm.
be Frankenstein IP.
Yes. It definitely when I walked out of the theater, I felt exactly that. I said, okay, this is like a feminist forward, like, anarchy, like Pussy Riot kind of movie, right? I felt like it
Yeah.
was starting something, like you said. It definitely is trying to say something. It just feels like it's trying to say so many things, like she's trying to say so many things at once that actually the message is kind of getting lost.
Yep.
Um,
Well, I like your point too about the movies because to me it did the exact opposite. Because every time you're putting Frankenstein in a theater or even The Bride, they're loud, they're obnoxious, they're bothering other people seeing the
yes.
film. It's almost like Maggie Gyllenhaal was trying to comment on because it's actually funny. My viewing I saw of that last night, the people behind me would not shut up the entire movie and like they were playing on their phone, they had their flashlight
Oh my
on. I was
God.
like, oh wow, like maybe it was just a victim of my circumstances, but I was like, this is what she's trying to say. So when you say that, I feel like that feels like she's seeing people aren't reacting well to this and trying to do that. Because again, this is the budget was between 80 and 90 million, and it's tracking for less than 20.
Oof.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. That, you know, I will say that at least from the like technical state of the movie, like the things that they did, I thought were pretty interesting. Like obviously it's film noir, right? It has it written all over
Hmm.
it. They also do the extreme close-ups and this kind of, I don't know, maybe German expressionist kind of like backdrop on the world and the story and the like psyche stuff, right? And I really did enjoy all of that. I thought that was
Sure.
really fun and really interesting. It was very pretty. But like a lot of those films when that time started, they're very jumbled and very like Dr. Caligari, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of insanity and you don't really know like what's I mean personally I didn't understand like what is happening here. What are we supposed to take from this or do? And I felt like that kind of translated into this. Um like I don't know, like maybe there was supposed to be more and even the fact at the end like you said I think the movie theater drive-in scene would have been a perfect ending point too, because that's Bonnie and Clyde.
Right.
But then this whole we're going back, and now the woman detective's like, I'm gonna wait outside. You do what you need to do, and now they're back. Like, come on. It was a little ridiculous at that point.
Yeah, and monster movies are ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of my thing about the parts I thought were good were the monster Bonnie and Clyde moments. And that's kind of what the trailer portrayed it as. Like I had no clue going into this that the Mary Shelley possession was going to happen, and to me
Mm,
that was so bland and uninteresting.
hmm
Like it really showcased Jessie Buckley and she was doing very well, but I don't think it added anything good. And it just kind of added runtime. I feel like if this was a 90-minute monster movie, it could have been better. There's some stuff. I mean, you had Jake Gyllenhaal playing, I guess, Fred Astaire, like a different look on Fred Astaire, and I thought he was interesting. And then there was no payoff with him whatsoever.
Yes.
Like Frankenstein meets him, Gyllenhaal's character laughs at him, and then they hold a gun to his head, and there's nothing else. Like, why?
That's what, like, not, yeah, when you bring that up, that's a good point. It's not something I thought about, but there is a lot of things that just don't pay off that they set up. Like
Yeah.
you said, like I never thought he would meet that person in real life, to be honest. I thought, oh, cool, it's just someone he admires in the movies, and that the point of him is right, he wants to be that. He wants to be
Hmm.
that person or have that attention or have that love or romance. But you said he meets him, he makes fun of him. It's like a 2 minute thing. And I don't even remember after that, like when the police and everything come in, I don't even think really much happens to him even after that scene.
No,
He's
so
just kind of
like
there.
the bride like brings him up and makes him go to his knees and she's holding a gun to his head, but that's it. Like nothing happens. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what you think. I think it would have been interesting if Frankenstein kind of cracked in that moment and like went after her because that's his idol, you know, but nothing. They don't do anything with it. She just shoots a cop.
Yeah, exactly. Which is such a random way to end that scene too. I do think like with Frankenstein too, like I'm not sure how I feel about his betrayal in this movie as kind of being this Frankenstein that's like a chill guy and like a loving guy and all that stuff. I mean, we just had Guillermo del Toro's, which I really did enjoy that Frankenstein. But even then, I felt like we were still getting like under the monster's skin and like finding lo ways to love him. But at the end of the day, he's still destroyed and broke things. And I feel like we just needed more of that. I think I would have actually really, really liked that if Frankenstein did a little bit more. But maybe that's kind of the point of the bride, maybe, is they didn't want him to be the main event, like she's the
Right.
main event.
Right.
But in that case, maybe have her go off more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just it's so interesting. And there was a point in the movie too that Mary Shelley like is talking to Ida and Ida's like, I don't even remember my name. And she goes, well, I'm not gonna tell you, you need to find it for yourself. But then all she does is ask Frankenstein. He gives her a fake name, and then they throw in this weird storyline with that detective that he was sleeping with her and that she was
Hmm.
undercover and all this stuff, and that didn't fit at all. Like
No,
that, there's zero resolution in that regard. Like they didn't even go back to the mob boss. The mob boss had one weird Godfather scene and then nothing.
that's yes, exactly. And that was a really weird thing too when they started adding that whole that's they just kept adding all these subplots that had no time to pay off. And that whole thing where he knew her and that they had this whole history, it was very poorly set up and it was set up way too late in the movie. Like there's no way that's paying off. Um, I remember the last scene with the mob boss. I don't know if this was maybe after the credits started or before, but when all the girls are like drawing tattoos on his face to make him look like her
Hmm.
was also weird. I'm like, why didn't we just see her? You know what would have been interesting? And I thought about this too. Bonnie and Clyde, they should have just gone to kill that guy. That should have been the goal.
Right.
Go to kill the main guy if you have so many issues. And then that would have been a more interesting way to have a shootout and they both die or blah, blah, blah. But him just like sending this random guy who's now chasing them and it just yeah, it's like you said, it was almost too much without any payoff.
Well, and it's like the movie is too long, but it's also not long enough to pay everything
Yes.
off. Like I I thought about this and it's gonna sound incredibly rude about the movie, but so the story out of this movie about Christian Bale is that every day before they started shooting, he would let out a primal scream to get into character. I think if I had read this script every day, I probably would have screamed at the top of the day too. Like
No, actually. And I think too, like I always talk about this, like we're at the point where we have these movies that feel like they need to be 2 hours and 45 minutes or 3 hours. And I don't really like this trend. I really miss like the hour and 45, hour 35 minutes because you can do really good story in that time. But then we have like these crazy big movies, like one battle after another. The Odyssey, I'm sure, is going to be 3 hours, like all these things. And yes, some of them cool. Like you can look at the Odyssey and like have that big epic adventure. But a movie like this doesn't feel like it needs to be as long as it was at
right.
all. I actually don't remember the runtime of it but it felt very long. It had to have been 2 hours plus, right?
It was, yeah, 2 hours and 6 minute runtime.
Dang, see, it even felt longer than that to me.
Yeah, I agree. And that's not great. Like, you know, I don't want a movie to be too short, but like if you cut out 20 minutes of this movie, you cut out potentially the mob boss storyline, or because the mob boss to Maggie Gyllenhaal was so important, maybe you cut the Peter Skarsgård story because it didn't add anything except for her finding out what her actual name was. And they didn't do anything with that then except Frankenstein started calling her Ida. Like that's it.
And yes, that's what I thought is when she got her name, that it would like unlock something in her. I was
Right.
expecting that. Like, okay, when she gets her name, but then when they did say Ida and she knew her name, like nothing happened. And you're like, okay. And then she's like, the bride. And I'm like, well, but that's not your name. I guess. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think this movie's incredibly messy. I definitely didn't hate it. Um, but it certainly could have been better. It feels like it was dumped, especially the fact it's up against Hoppers this weekend, which I
Oh
haven't
yeah.
seen. I think you saw it, right? Like
Love
I've
toppers, yeah.
I've heard it's Pixar getting back into form.
Yes.
Which is good for them because they have Toy Story 5 coming out this year too. So
Yes.
it feels like they dumped it because you can tell how many reshoots they did with this. This was supposed to release in the fall, and it kept getting pushed
Oof.
and pushed, and then it was just kind of dumped into March. And I've heard, and I feel like I agree with it, this is kind of the end of the Warner Brothers being like, we're gonna just back filmmakers and let them kind of do what they want, you know? And it did succeed a lot last year. I mean, Sinners, one battle after
Hmm.
another.
Hmm.
Superman kind of, right? Weapons, like they did well, but to end on this note, it's like, ooh. And now Warner Brothers isn't even going to be a thing anymore. It's going to join Paramount. So,
Yeah, exactly. It's all going to be sucked up into one big conglomerate.
yeah,
Um, yeah, that's it's a very good point. And like you said, Sinners and One Battle are actually both, I mean, up against each other for Oscars too. So it is
right.
interesting, right, when they do take the risk. And I think that we push studios to take risks and do stories that are interesting or weird, but then it's like you make a movie like this, right? And they're like, "Well, look at we just dumped all that money. This is why we don't do things that are out of the normal standard. This is exactly why."
Exactly.
And you're like, "Damn, man, like
Yeah, it's like
bummer."
I don't know if you're like a sports guy at all, but like this movie to me feels like the college football playoffs a couple years ago when they didn't put Florida State in because the NCAA wanted to say, oh, well, this is why we're switching to 12 teams in the playoff instead of four because we can't get it right. It feels like the same thing. It feels like Warner Brothers is like, oh, see, we pumped all this movie money into this movie to tell you we can't keep doing this.
Exactly. That's exactly that. Yeah. It's a very interesting point. And a very interesting release time too. Like I almost wonder if this movie would have done better, like you said, in the fall. I think this is a perfect fall movie. And I think a
Sure.
lot more people would have seen it because they're just like, oh, it's Frankenstein in fall, but it's a strange time to release it. And also in January, it's like, well, we're in March now, right? But in the beginning of the year, we kind of get all these dud after dud after dud after dud for a while, and then we start ramping back up. And this was hopefully going to be the ramp up movie, but it hasn't seemed that there has been one yet.
No, my assumption is Project Hail Mary will be that. That'll be our
Oh yeah.
real launch point into the summer because 2026 is going to be a big year for movies, and I thought this
Yeah.
would be part of that, but I've seen about 30 movies that have come out this year, and this is one of my least favorites, I think.
Yeah, that's valid. I agree.
Yeah, but that's kind of the movie. Do we have any final thoughts before we want to get into our rating here?
That's all I have to say about it.
All right. So on Real Friends, we do it out of 10. So give me your rating out of 10 for this.
I'll give it a 5 out of 10. And mostly for the visual aspects. If we're talking story, it's probably a 3 out of 10.
Yep. I'm right there with you. I'm at a 5 also. And I think the saving graces are that I absolutely adored that scene after the club. I thought that was so cool. I think
Yes.
without that scene, it's probably a 3.
Absolutely agree. That scene after the club is really when everything took off too, and it was such a good scene. I feel like both of the characters kind of were starting to have their personal, like kind of like coming into themselves, and we saw like what Frankenstein's willing to do, right? And also the tone of the film. But like you said, like that scene should have been the jump off scene.
Yeah.
But I
Because
agree with you.
the scene immediately after that, right, is the train, which, was pretty interesting too. And then she pushes that cop off, and I was
Yep.
like, okay, that's what we're doing. And then
Yes.
it just came to a screeching halt because she was like,
Yes.
wait, I have a point I need to make that we can't keep just killing people.
Exactly.
So, but sweet, that has been The Bride. And Kyle, go ahead and plug your page again, man. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so it's belong the Beyond the Logline podcast. It's on Spotify, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So You'll find me there.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. As always, I'm your host, Alex. This has been the Real Friends Podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, buddy. Bye.